Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. I've always seen you as somebody that, even with PGC, just have amazing connections, relationships with, it could be basket directors or other directors, but then even with your own team, with your players. How and when do you meet with players and really help build that bond?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because we're in the relationship business no matter what. I mean, it doesn't matter what level you coach at. If you don't have good relationships, if you don't have good communication, it's really hard, to get a team to thrive, to get players to reach their potential. And so you have to be really intentional about this. And I think there's the art of coaching and kind of the science of coaching. And I think meeting with players and connecting with players is a little bit of both. And, the science of it is is that you need to do it. You need to schedule it in. And I tell people this all the time that this was really big for me in my coaching, was scheduling in a lot of these meetings because I'm a high D personality and I'm thinking about what's next. What do you do? How do I get this accomplished? And it really started out really simple for me is I put 2 to 3 names on my practice plan, and I made sure that I grabbed them before or after practice and said, how's life? How's school? What's going on? And truthfully, it was awkward for me in the beginning because I was like, oh man, I'm thinking about how we need to fix this in our zone, or I'm thinking about but I also knew I wanted to be a transformational coach. I wanted to reach people's lives. So I knew that relationships and connections were really important. And over the years, we've done a lot of different things for player meetings. And I think some of it depends on, the leadership of your team, because we have our team actually good. When we have a really strong leadership, we have our leaders meet with other players on the team.
Nice.
We also have where, like, Graham Maxwell is a phenomenal assistant. I've had him associate head coach, where there's a lot of meetings he does with the players that might be outside of things that I might talk to them about. So we're not trying to kill them with player meetings, but we are trying to smother them with touches. How do they actually meet with a captain? How do they spend time with Graham? How do they spend time with me? And over the years, we've adjusted that. One of my favorite ones is probably like 7-minute tune-ups, where once a week we meet with everybody for 7 minutes. And in those conversations, we just kind of had a series of questions about, what's going on in life, how's school going, how you feeling about your game. Now, in those 7-minute tune-ups, some guys were like, man, it's all good. Like, life's great. I'm enjoying it. Right?
It's a 2-minute tune-up.
Yeah, really. And that's all they needed. But also in those tune-ups, sometimes we got responses that said, you know what, we need to meet with this player longer. There's more going on. And so, there's 12 players and 10 of them, take 7-minute tune-up and you're good to go. We checked in, life's good. But there's 2 of them that you could tell, man, by their answers, there's something going on. Hey, why don't you come by the office this afternoon for 30 minutes to an hour or whatever it might be? So really just kind of being like a doctor, like, this person's healthy, they don't need much. This person is not doing so good, and they need some more, in-depth prescription here of time or other people or other resources to talk to. But it really gave us a gauge of how our players were doing and where we might need to go next with the next meeting.
Man, I'm so glad that I got to do this with you, because that's one of those questions, one of those areas where I really feel like I fall short. Focused on basketball, focused on skill development and all of the, shooting, whatever, but then sometimes lacking in relationships. And I wonder, how many times do I think I know the pulse, or I have a good sense of really where the team's at or where an individual's at, but man, I might just be completely off. And those nuggets right there, I would imagine that throughout the season, you would be somebody, like you said, the art of it, having a good idea of what the pulse of your team is, where they need to go. I feel like you probably have that down.
Not perfect, but
Right.
I care about it and I want to do it well because I want to impact young people. And, one of the things that we've done in the past too that I really think helps is like the love languages test. You can just kind of print that off and people can take it. And you recognize, like, I've got a player, really really good player, going to be a pro, first team All-American, but his love language is quality time, and so I recognize that I need to spend time with him, right? And then I have another player, from the great state of Texas, where you're at, really, a different personality, and honestly, it's like our 7 minute tune-ups are like 90 seconds. He's like just one of those guys that's like, and he'll see me once a semester or whatever, maybe have to talk about something, but he's not a quality time guy. He's more just like, hey, I know you love me, I know that you care about me, we're good, like, let's
But
just go work.
knowing that is huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And because if you could miss that, it's the same thing in marriage, like, you give love the way you receive it. I'm acts of service. So I say this all the time, like, I don't mind cleaning the house, washing the dishes, going to get the groceries and doing everything under the sun for my wife, but that doesn't make her feel loved. And it's the same thing with players, so she's words of affirmation. So I could do 4 hours of acts of service, and that wouldn't equate to 30 seconds of "you look beautiful today," just a compliment. And we can miss, just like we miss in our own relationships, we can miss with our players too.
That's good. Have you always been that intentional about those relationships with your players? Or, like, I think sometimes starting out in coaching, we might teeter on one side or the other, heavy X's and O's, like you talked about earlier, or heavy art and relationships. What side did you start out as?
Yeah, well, I'm a high D on the disc personality, like a driver. And so my natural, and I think a lot of coaches, have that. Not everybody, but a lot of coaches are thinking about how to get the right offense and how to get the right defense and get your players going, all that kind of stuff. But I also have a heart to be a transformational coach, and that's my end game of winning. And there's no shortcutting that. You have to invest in people. And so it was a mix for me, to be honest with you. Like, I think early in my career, I was probably, my time was just organic. And so I would be like, yeah, if a player needs me, let's go eat lunch. Let's
Yeah.
go spend time. And I was willing to do that. But as I've grown as a coach, I've realized that oftentimes those only happened when it became overbearing, too much. And I wanted to catch it before that. I wanted to
Nice.
help them along the journey. And as coaches, we're crazy busy, right? And so if you don't schedule it, it typically doesn't get done.
Mm.
And so that's where, I've become more intentional about trying to make sure we're scheduling in the relationship time, the meeting time, time to transform, time to pour in, all of those things, because it's better for me. It's better for my schedule. I still got a wife and kids and a whole bunch of other things going on in my life, just like you do and every other coach on here does. And so we have to protect our time. And if we want to give them our best, it's hard to do it just organically and be like, oh yeah, let me just take 2 hours and miss my kid's soccer game or it's tough. And so you got to schedule well. And I had to learn to do that.
Man, that's such a great nugget, because you're right on the money. The majority of times I feel like where we intentionally meet with players, it's because there's already a problem.
Yeah.
Something is brewing and now we have to come. But I mean, that doesn't work in any area of life. Like, take our fitness or our health. Oh, the doctor says I may have a heart attack. Like, I mean, it's a bad place to be. You have to do the work early on. So thank you for that reminder there.
Absolutely.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.